Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum viewers. I'm your host SM Hali, presenting another edition of Defense and Diplomacy. The situation in Syria is extremely serious, with more than 500,000 persons dead, with more than 425,000 refugees and an equal number internally displaced persons. The condition is very precarious for the Syrians. Is there any light at the end of the tunnel? What is the update on the Syrian situation? These are some of the aspects our worthy guests in our studio today are going to discuss. We are honored to have with us Ambassador Javed Hafiz, who spent a number of years as an ambassador in quite a few Arab states. Welcome to the show, sir. We have with us an Arab journalist who keeps himself abreast of the latest situations, Abubakr Younus. Welcome to the show, sir. Let's start with you, sir. We recently had the Geneva talks, but they got suspended. I don't want to use the word failed. What was the reason for this particular suspension, sir?
There were a number of reasons. Number one, the Geneva talks got delayed. If you recall, they were to start in early January, but then they got delayed by about a month. The problem with the talks always is that they are always in tune with the ground situation. The ground situation in Syria, particularly after the Russian intervention, has changed substantially and is changing even today. The opposition is divided, it is in disarray.
What is the opposition, sir?
The opposition is, it's a collection of number of groups. To begin with, let me clarify that Daesh and Jabhat al-Nusra, they're out. They are not a part of the talks. Inside the opposition, there are various groups. There is the Independent Syrian Army, or Al-Jaysh al-Hur, and other groups. There is a group called Jaysh al-Islam, groups like that. So these groups are not really united, and they have also been demoralized by the Russian bombing, because the Russians came into Syria saying that we will be fighting against Daesh, but actually their target were the forces that were against Bashar al-Assad's regime. So there was a...
But the Russians are willing to show videos where they have actually disrupted Daesh convoys and not the opposition as has been claimed.
No, I've seen the credible reports that they have also bombed in fact, to begin with, they bombed more Syrian opposition positions than Daesh. So they've been doing both, the Daesh as well as the Syrian opposition. The Syrian opposition was receding. The government forces, assisted and supported by the Russian forces, are gaining ground, as we see today in and around Aleppo.
We'll talk about Aleppo or Halab in a short while, sir. Let me solicit your opinion, Abubakr. One of the reasons John Kerry, the US Secretary of State, says that the Russians did not call for a ceasefire while the Geneva talks were on, whereas the factual position is not talking about the ceasefire, but that the opposition did not show up for the talks in numbers, or they did reach the venue at Geneva, but they remain in their hotels. What is the correct situation, sir?
The opposition wanted actually one main, they have imposed actually one main reason before coming to the talks, that they wanted to stop the siege, which is actually most of the Syrian people actually now under siege. Most of the people in Aleppo are dying because of hunger. They wanted to stop the siege, and they wanted to stop the bombing before they come to talks. Why should they come to talks first, while the bombs are there, while the people are dying from hunger, from cold, from every second, a minute, bullet and bombs happening by Russians. Actually, there is a lot of things we have to look on the ground of Syria. It is not now the only Russians who's there. It is the Iranians, which is very clear. There is Hezbollah, which is very clear. There is the Russians, and there's the Kurds as well.
And of course the Daesh.
And of course Daesh. Everybody's there fighting for what? This is the question. Why they are fighting? Why Russians are fighting? Why Iranians are fighting? Hezbollah is fighting. If the people of Syria wanted to change their leadership, it is their right. It is their right. When the people of Pakistan wanted to change their leadership, nobody killed Pakistan people. When they wanted to change the ex-president of Pakistan, Pervez Musharraf, they changed him. There was a lawyer movement. Nobody killed their lawyers. Nobody threw missiles on Rawalpindi or Lahore or Islamabad. I mean, this is a right. They can participate in the right. It's a very simple thing. Still now, there is no rational reason for what Bashar Assad have done. He have killed so far, according to the report, 300,000 people. That is clearly proved by everybody. Why he's doing this? Russians actually are using Iranians now in order to create kind of pace inside Syria that can give Russians a big hand inside the Arabic world. For this reason, for this sake, for this target, they're participating in this war. We know very well, since 1913, when there was the First World War started, Germans, Russians, French and British, they were fighting actually in order to decline and destroy the Osmani Khilafat, the Islamic actually leadership.
The Khilafat Osmaniya.
Especially the Khilafat Osmaniya. Now, in this current situation, before some years, when people realize that since the Khilafat Osmaniya have been destroyed, we are as Muslims are having no right to live in a proper way. See what's happening in Palestine, see what's happening in other places. They say, okay, fine, let's come back to Islam. That's what Syrians wanted actually. That's the main reason that pushed the Russians, pushed the Iranians, pushed Americans as well to come and support. You know, now Americans, we know very well, everybody knows very well. Americans are supporting the Kurdish fight. Why they are supporting Kurdish to kill Syrians? There's no
something which has angered the Turks very much, who are supposed to be a US ally.
But you see now, they're supporting the Kurdish, and the Kurdish, just now there was a news that they have actually taken some places in Syria, that's some airport in Aleppo. Why is this happening?
In fact, yesterday the US ambassador in Ankara was summoned by the Turkish government, and he was apprised of this, that why have you decided not to call the Kurds terrorists and to support them and to launch them for these attacks.
Say one thing more. Nowadays, there's a reconciliation kind of process they wanted to start. After all this killing, and millions of people have been displaced from their houses, and most of them died in the roads, died in trying to rescue themselves, their families, and now there is nobody speaking about removing Bashar al-Assad. Not the Americans, not the Russians.
So
they are actually asking the other people to be removed. They want the population, the people of Syria to be removed. Nobody is saying the Bashar Assad actually have to be removed. Hardly a few. Now,
no, but allow me. When there was a chance to take action against Bashar al-Assad, at that time, the Americans, they followed the policy that Bashar al-Assad is going to give up those so-called gas bombs or chemical weapons, and therefore we should give him a chance. I think that was the time when probably a regime change could have taken place. But he was given a lease of life. So who shall we blame for that?
Let me tell you something. Americans said before that Saddam Hussein and his regime, they have a nuclear weapon, they have some chemical weapons, and we have to come and destroy Saddam Hussein. Which actually everybody knew before. After that, it was only like kind of fake reports. It was nothing real. So what Americans are doing actually nothing good for us, nothing good for Syrians. They wanted to remove Bashar Assad, but they are not removing him.
But Bashar actually had chemical weapons.
He have used.
This is what I'm trying to say, that the situation is different from Iraq.
Exactly.
Because to date, they have not been able to unearth a single weapon of mass destruction in Iraq. But you are right, sir, there was ample evidence that chemical weapons were being harbored and perhaps used by the Syrian regime.
Let me tell you one thing. What actually now understood very clearly, that the Americans have given the Russians a green light. You are allowed to do what you want to do in Syria, and so that's why Russians are doing their. How come Russians come with their full-fledged air fighters and
You
army
think so,
crews?
sir? Because if you watch the U.S. media, they are very critical of the Russian actions in Syria. But let me get back to the ambassador. I'm sorry I checked you on the tracks about Halab, because before that I wanted to get this particular impression. But please continue, sir. The situation in Aleppo or Halab is quite precarious. So what do you talk about that, sir?
It's the second largest city after Damascus.
And one of the most opulent ones. You
Yes.
remember, even Marco Polo had stopped there. Both you and I have visited there, and it used to be not only historic but a very rich place.
Yes, indeed, and its location is very strategic. It has a lot of history. There are 2 million people still living in the city, and it is under siege by the government forces. Incidentally, there are 18 Syrian towns which are under siege, not only by the government, but by various forces, by Daesh, by the opposition, and by the Bashar regime. One of them was Madaya, next to Zabadani in the hills.
Right.
And I've been to that place a number of times, and it pained me, the pictures of children starving from death. You couldn't bear to see those. Anyway, coming back to Aleppo, the city is under siege. 2 million people threatened. There is for example, this very morning I read somewhere that water supply in the city has stopped. So 2 million people threatened with starvation, lack of water. See the proportion of destruction of human life that can happen in that city. And Syria has already suffered so much. 11 million people either internally displaced or thrown out of the country. As Abubakr said, 300,000 killed. So, practically 1 in every 100 Syrian has been killed. Practically every third Syrian is a internal or
External displaced person.
or refugee. So this is Syria is a tragedy of momentous
But while we're
proportions.
talking about Halab or Aleppo, you may like to highlight, sir, about its proximity to the Turkish border,
It's close to Turkey.
and what is happening to the people who are trying to escape this siege because the Turks have closed their borders for their own security reasons.
They have indeed. There are a lot of people, there are thousands of people sitting on the border right now. The Turks won't let them in. There are a number of problems. Number one, the Turkish problem with the EU. Not enough money is being given by the EU to Turkey to support these refugees. Secondly, of course, there is always with the refugees comes the security issue. We have seen it in Pakistan when we took the Afghan refugees.
We recently saw it in the Paris attacks, because it turns out that the perpetrators had probably trickled in the guise of the refugees.
Yes. So I think the Turks are justified in being very cautious about taking the refugees in. What they have said is that we will support you, but you remain on the Syrian side.
But on the other side, sir, if you recall, I think it was yesterday that the Turkish Prime Minister Davutoglu said he recalled a historic moment when the people of Halab had supported the Turks when you were talking about the Khilafat Osmania, and they said that it is time for us to repay the people of Halab.
Yes, indeed, people of Aleppo. In fact, Syria has a parallel history of secularism and Islam. When I was there, and that was in the mid-70s, I'm talking of 76. 76 is the year when the Islamic movement in Syria, started being active, and then the government was quite conscious about it. Then we see the terrible tragedy that took place around 1982 in Aleppo, when about 20,000 people were killed. So there is a strong movement over there, and Syria has been a very important country of the Arab world, despite the fact that it has in area and in terms of population it is not all that big, not as big as Egypt, but still it is one of the 3 or 4 most
and a very strategic location vis-a-vis Israel, which is something I'll come to later.
Next to Israel, next to Turkey, and this is an area which has produced great intellectuals. It has great history, and it is one country which had stood up to Israel on the Palestinian issue.
Obviously. So, Brother Abubakr, you are of Palestinian origin, and you will appreciate whatever is happening here is pushing the Palestinian issue on the back burner, and also allowing Israel to make footholds even in Syria as far as territory is concerned. So what are your thoughts on that, sir?
I'll just add one point, or I'll start from one point, that Palestinian tragedy actually is repeated again in Syria.
Yes.
The demographic change which they have made in Palestine by implementing a new kind of people, that is the Jewish inside Palestine, and saying that they are actually the real estate, or the real people who you're supposed to live there. They are actually trying to do the same thing now in Syria by using some Iranians and pushing them to live inside. There are 500,000 Iranians have been deployed inside Syria. 500,000 have been deployed inside Syria. Besides that, they have destroyed in Syria all the system of identity card or passports in order to issue a new one. Of course, with this new one, most of those 500,000 people who came from Russia, who came from Syria, from Iran, inside Syria, they will also be given a nationality of Syrian, or they will be given that nationality which actually will allow them to live in this area, and they will claim that they are actually the real people of this state. So there is actually kind of repetition of the same tragedy inside Syria, because they think what they have done in Palestine is a successful experiment, so they are repeating again. Let me just add one thing, that actually now the Arabic world became really a kind of experiment field for foreign forces. Most of the new weapons made by Russians, they are being now used here. Most of the new weapons also being used by produced by the U.S. forces have also been used against Daesh, so-called, in Iraq or in Syria. So we're the place where they're experimenting their weapons. We're the place where they're experimenting their new strategies, new ideas. They're changing, they are playing with the demographic situation of the Middle East. And unfortunately, what's so sad, that our religion leader, our political leader are away totally from having any real stand, any real decision against what's happening to us.
Actually, I'm sorry, I'll beg to differ with you. Our regional leaders, I'm talking about the Muslim leaders in the territory, they are not remaining away, they are not united. Because perhaps they don't see the danger which is coming from here. I mean, they forget that couplet from Ahmad Faraz, that today I am bearing the brunt of destruction. Do not rejoice, because the wind is no one's friend. Every house will be burnt. End of the day, this is what will happen. But unfortunately, we are keeping our eyes closed and taking sides which are not conducive to a solution. Am I right, sir?
Actually,
Because I've deferred with you, but I want you to agree.
That would have been a good, actually, stand from them if they are kept aside. They're not kept aside, actually. They're implementing what the US and Israeli and Russians say to them to do. Now, let me just ask a question. All the discussions, all the summits that being held about Syria, where it's held? Does it held in any Arabic country? In any Muslim country? Does it held in Pakistan? In Saudi Arab? No, it's in Vienna,
Geneva.
in US, in Germany,
In
Geneva, in Munich. Come on, we are Muslim. Why should we go to the Americans to come, please? We want to discuss with each other.
So the reason is again that we are not united.
We are not only not united.
This is what I was trying to say.
We are
This
not
is
only
what
not united.
point, that we are not united.
What they actually implement to us, what they have to tell us. We are not. We don't have our own choice or our own.
I'm afraid I have to take a short break. We'll pick up the thread from where we left, and I'll come back to you, sir. So, viewers, stay tuned. We'll just be back. We are taking a very short break. Welcome back, viewers. Before we went on the break, we were discussing about an update on the very precarious situation in Syria. So, coming back to you, Ambassador, there is talk about certain forces invading Syria out of sheer desperation. How do you look at it? Is there such a possibility?
When we say invading Syria, actually Syria has already been invaded, because we have Russian forces on ground.
We have the Daesh.
We have the Daesh. Daesh, actually, I won't count Daesh and Kurds. I won't count there because they are local. I'm talking about the foreign forces. Hezbollah is a foreign force. Iranian Pasdaran, if they're fighting over there, they are a foreign force. And now we are, as you say, hearing about other countries, the Gulf countries, along with some other Arab countries, also sending their forces over there. So in this kind of a situation, what we have seen is that foreign forces do get sucked in because the government forces are gaining ground, aided by Russia and Iran. Incidentally, the information center or the control room for all these operations, Russian, Iran, Iraq, was set up in Baghdad 2 years ago. So there is a danger of more foreign forces being sucked in, but that would be disastrous and must be avoided by.
Because the Americans also, sir, so far have been participating in aerial
Yes.
Bombardment, but they are generally talking about boots on the ground.
They indeed are, and I think the Gulf countries are waiting for an American-led offensive in Syria. But I see that as an element that would further complicate the situation, because number one, Turkey is a big player. Turkey and the United States do not have the same views about Kurds. They would be on opposing sides. There would be the Gulf forces or the Arab forces versus Iran and Russia and Bashar al-Assad. So I think that is, if anything has been left of Syria, it will be further destroyed, and it must be avoided at all costs. In fact, the way out of the current situation is to de-escalate the foreign forces and intervention.
We'll talk about solutions in a short while. Let me ask you, Brother Abubakr Younus, what is your opinion about possible incursion, or to use the worse word, invasion by foreign forces of Syria?
Let's just point one point where I think history always says that we have seen invasions in different ways. But what's happening now, it's not just invasion force. Actually, it's kind of they are killing force. Those people are actually, these forces which are actually coming to Syria, the main task is to kill people. The Russians are not doing anything as invader. They're not, let's say, having a strategy or having kind of targets they want to have in Syria. So far, the only thing they want now is to kill people. So they are killer forces. Same thing doing Hezbollah, same thing doing the Iranians, same thing doing Daesh. The main target, the main action they are taking inside Syria is killing. Now, what other forces are expected to do? Let's say the Saudis or the...
So, but before you talk about the other forces, tell me, humanity has become so cheap
unfortunately,
that people are on a killing spree?
That's what's happening. This is actually, we are living in this time where there is no meaning, there is no value for human blood. Every second, every minute, people are dying in Syria. Children, women, men, old men, everybody dies for no reason. They have not committed anything wrong. They have not done anything to Russians. They have not done anything to Iranians. Nobody have killed anybody from Hezbollah. Nobody have touched anybody from this Kurd forces. But they are all coming and they are killing Syrians. Daesh being created, and most of people Daesh they were in America. They were in Guantanamo. They have taken special train there from the USA, and they are coming now. They created this Daesh inside Syria.
Are you sure about that?
Abubakr Baghdadi himself, he was in Guantanamo.
I know he was.
He was. We have seen the tapes of Daesh. Most of them are Americans. They speak. They say that we are from USA.
But you think he was compromised over there and then launched?
What else? Tell me, they're Americans. Aren't they Americans? Americans always USA ask Pakistan. They have to stop terrorists. They have to stop Taliban. They have to stop this. Okay, they go to Afghanistan. Don't allow anybody to do. Yeah, your people are coming from USA. They have created Daesh. Abubakr Baghdadi was in Guantanamo. Why they have not kept him there? If he have that much strong, and of course they have their intelligence and they have all their very updated. They should have kept him. They know everything about him.
What are your thoughts about that?
No, I don't quite buy it. Again, it is the same refrain that everything ominous that is happening to the Muslims and to the Arab world is exported by the United States. Now let me, I was thinking about the Bashar al-Assad regime, and he got actually 3 leases of life. The first was when, was it September 2013 when the chemical weapons?
That's right.
Yeah, when the outskirts of Damascus was bombed with chemical weapons, and then he said, okay, we will destroy them. The Russians saved them then. The next lease of life came through Daesh. Daesh, of course, is a creation. It's a cocktail of pro-Saddam forces, of people, and aided by the United States and of course by other Arab countries, because they wanted to use them against the regime in Baghdad. So it has become, it's a very complicated issue. So we can't just say that it is one thing that has been planted by the United States. But the US and the Western countries did have a role in its development. The third lease of life that
Bashar
al-Assad got was in 2015 when the Russians came in, and since then he is gaining ground politically, militarily, and the latest developments in Geneva, before that in Vienna, are that the Americans are not standing up to the Russians, and they are conceding ground. Their policy is laid back. They think that Syria would prove another Afghanistan for the Russians, that the Sunni majority in the Arab world would be alienated. They would be against the Russians. This is American policy, but it's not a proactive policy. It is just watch and see and laid back policy, and that has given the Russians a lot of space to operate in Syria and to help. Now, how Bashar al-Assad is seen as part of the solution and not part of the problem, but he actually is part of the problem.
Well, I think that's a fair assessment, but coming back to you, Abubakr, Younus, yes, we talk about foreign intervention, foreign incursion, foreign solutions, but this is a local problem. What is the solution which should come from within? I'm talking about the Muslim Ummah.
We are actually too much divided. We don't have Ummah, as you just said. Ummah means one. It means unity,
yes,
which is actually not available now. Where is the Ummah? The Syrians suffering, Palestinians are suffering since 70 years. Nobody has even spoke about them. Nobody did anything for them. Nobody forced the Israelis to stop bombarding Gaza. No one. We have the first Qibla of Muslim, it's under the Jewish control. Where is the Ummah, so-called? So it's not there actually. So we don't have this terminology now. It's not real in life. It's maybe in the history.
And in our part of the world, the Kashmiris are suffering for the last 70 years.
The same thing, of course, the same thing. That's why I'm saying what we called Ummah is not available. It's not, you can't see it on the ground. Actually, and this is the main point. Those Western people are actually utilizing it. They know that we are divided, and they are playing on this main element, that there is no unity among the Muslims, as all Muslims, and also among Arab themselves. Arab themselves is too much divided. But if we Muslims are being like one unity, who would have dared to touch Syria or Iraq or Libya? If we all united.
Okay. Let's talk about solutions. What should we be doing?
In Syria specifically?
Yes, we are talking about Syria.
The main thing, actually, we speak about Syria as it is one element or one story, but actually it's one part of a whole, you can see, series of bloodshed happening in the Arab world. You cannot only isolate Syria from what's happening in the other side of Arab world, in Egypt or in Palestine or in other areas. But if we kept only Syria as one element, of course the intervention of these Western forces have to stop at once.
Who will make them stop?
We should do it. We Muslims have to do
How?
it. If we are united. So we come back to the same circle. We are not united.
Okay, so Ambassador.
No, first let me clarify that the OIC and the Arab League did try to begin with to find a solution for the Syrian problem, but they did not succeed. Because of what? Because of polarization in the Muslim world, because of the divisions in the Arab world, and lack of muscle. It actually let's concede, let's accept that it is the Western countries, because of their advancement in science and technology, in economy, that they are calling the shots. They are holding, four of the five permanent seats in the Security Council. So,
But all our wealth, all our pelf, all our natural resources, it comes to naught?
no, it shouldn't come to a naught, but we have not been able to manage that well, manage that for the welfare of our people. If we had done that, I don't think the Arab Spring would have ever come. So that is the problem. We had lot of resources.
So let's talk about a way forward, sir.
The way forward. Well, right now, I think the UN Security Council Resolution 2254 gives a roadmap. It talks of an inclusive government, an inclusive and non-sectarian government, because let us concede that part of the problem in Syria is sectarian. There is a small 10% minority that has ruled Syria for a long time. We have seen that there was a minority government in Iraq. It did not. It couldn't continue. No minority government, no exclusive minority government can hold fort for a long time. The governments have in this 21st century have to be inclusive. They have to be plural. So it talks of a Syrian-owned and Syrian-led solution. The Syrian people have to decide their future. There has to be a transition government. Now, unfortunately, the Russian position is that Bashar al-Assad must be part of the transition government. He should not only be part of the transition government, but should also be allowed to fight the next elections. But I personally think, and that is my own view, that there's been so much killing. You know, in Pakistan, I think when we ousted Ayub Khan, not more than 100 people were killed. Same happened, as Abubakr Younus had mentioned, when Pervez Musharraf was changed. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, the PNA movement. But over here, the whole country has been destroyed, and the leader says, no, there shouldn't be any regime change because of outside interference. And at the same time, he is inviting outside interference. He's invited the Russians, the Iranians are there, Hezbollah is there. So outside interference must come to an end. This resolution of United States UN Security Council should be implemented.
2445.
2254.
2254, sorry.
Yeah, should be implemented in letter and spirit. There should be a neutral transition government. There should be a new constitution and elections to be held under the UN auspices.
Sounds fair, but Abubakr Younus, the question comes back that the Syrian opposition is not united. We just took the example of the Geneva talks, that the opposition went for the talks and they did not participate in it. Who kept them away? What kept them away? And what lies in future? Who is going to unite at least the people of Syria to stand up for their own rights?
They might be appearing that they are not united, because actually this kind of revolution, this kind of action from the people themselves, it came with no plan. It came as people stood themselves. They say, we want to change the regime because of certain regional factors. So it was not kind of strategic, planned since long time, and they're working on this. And this is one of the main mistakes people of Syria did, or the leaders of this revolution actually did in Syria. Now, of course, they refused to participate in the last summit because of the implementation that they have asked to do, that you have to come, you have to accept Bashar al-Assad as a leader of Syria, you have to accept such and such. And that, of course, kept them away from the talks. And this would also may fail today's talk, which is
in Munich
taking place.
And so the other aspect also is that, you see, when these talks fail, the donors who are supposed to be donating to allay the sufferings of the Syrian people, they become shy. And in the last donors conference also, 50% did not participate, and they are holding back. And even in Munich today, when the talks are going on, a very important consideration is going to be fiscal and physical support, not through weapons but through food and medicines and all, for the Syrian refugees and the Syrian people who are suffering in camps.
So if this happens actually, if this takes place, this means the opposition actually have really achieved one point, that they have made the people, the world focus on the suffering of the people of Syria. Because nowadays everybody speaks about how they will keep Bashar al-Assad in the regime, how they will have a political solution. Nobody thinks about the people dying every moment, every second in Syria. Nobody thinks about the refugees who are actually suffering here and there. They think about how they will going to keep Bashar al-Assad. They are not thinking about what he have done to his people, what the suffered people are facing. They're just trying to find a political way out for Bashar al-Assad. Nobody is finding a way to those people to live as a human being.
The point is that the people of Syria are definitely more important than a certain regime to stay on. But Ambassador, I would like to ask you, particularly with reference to Pakistan, we are embroiled in our own war on terror, and a very important war. We have other challenges, but still Pakistan has an important place in the Committee of the Islamic Nations. What role can we play to help our brothers and sisters in Syria?
I think first is to by supporting the political process over there, by discouraging polarization, by discouraging outside interference, by going along. I think the only way for us to go along is to support the UN efforts, because those are the only efforts which are now accepted by everybody. The other plans, they were either partial or they were rejected by one party.
You mentioned the OIC and the Arab League.
Yeah, they tried.
Even the GCC was unfortunately divided here.
Yes. That didn't make any headway. This is the only consensus resolution that we have. We have a plan of action, we have a roadmap, and we have to follow that. We have to reduce and eliminate the foreign intervention in Syria. And the solution of the problem should be owned and led by the Syrian people.
Right. So, Brother Abubakr Younus, since you're sitting in Pakistan and you have seen Pakistan very closely, very briefly, what should be Pakistan's role in resolving this very ugly situation?
People of Pakistan have suffered a lot of situations that we kind of similar to what's happening in Syria. Pakistan is fighting terrorists, but people of Pakistan are safe. Pakistan have changed its regime many times. People of Pakistan have changed the regime many times, but people of Pakistan also, again, they are safe. If Pakistani political leaders would share this experience with the Arab leaders, this is how you have to treat your people. This is how you have to live. This is how to look to your people. It's not to kill them, it's to give them what they want. I think this is a very important thing Pakistan have to share it with, especially our Arab and Muslim leaders.
Point taken. Viewers, with that we conclude this discussion. the question remains, how long will the killing fields of Syria continue taking such a huge toll of human lives? How long will this suffering of the Syrian people continue? Because unfortunately it is not just the Syrians, the entire region is up in flames. We see people dying in Syria, in Iraq, in Yemen, in Palestine, and closer to home in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, and in Kashmir. So the solution lies in only one aspect, and that is that we as Muslims must look for an Islamic solution. But to do that, we have to sink our differences. We have to not think about what gains we can benefit from this turmoil, strife, and conflict, but instead rise above all this and try to unite the leaders of the Islamic countries so that we can go in with one voice, one force, and one resolve that we have to handle this ourselves and not without any external intervention. Till that day comes, I'm afraid, blood will continue to be spilled. Let us hope this suffering ends sooner. I'd like to thank you, Brother Abubakr Younus. I'd like to thank you, Ambassador Javed Hafiz. It was a pleasure listening to both of you. Viewers, keep watching us. Hope to see you in the next program, inshallah. Allah Hafiz.